So guys, in the previous class we have discussed regarding the anatomical classification of the different kinds of lobes. If you haven't watched the lecture, please do watch. Okay. So in anatomical classification we discussed three important things. We discussed that there is something called as what are the things we have discussed? We discussed that there are three lobes. One is called as a flocculonodular lobe, next is called as an anterior lobe, and next we have got as a posterior lobe. So these are the lobes which we discussed. Okay. Now, one very important thing I want to tell you is that coming to anterior and posterior from the previous class, what did you see? See, this part, whatever is which I am drawing right now, this is your anterior lobe. Okay. And this part all the way down here, this is called as your posterior lobe. Now, which is bigger, anterior or posterior? Posterior lobe is bigger. Now, another name that is given for the posterior lobe is also called as the middle lobe. Another name that is given for the posterior lobe is your middle lobe. And next important thing you need to understand here is that this anterior lobe and the posterior lobe, what is the other name for the posterior lobe? It is also called as a middle lobe, right? So the anterior lobe, posterior lobe or the middle lobe, right? These two of them together is given a special name that is called as corpus cerebelli. That is called as your corpus cerebelli. So what is corpus cerebelli? Corpus cerebelli is nothing but your anterior lobe, posterior or the middle lobe. So both of them together you call it as a corpus cerebelli. Okay. Right. So in the lateral view, if you look at the same picture, from the lateral view, this is how it looks. For example, this is your midbrain. This is your pons. Okay, and next important thing is this is your medulla oblongata. This is your medulla oblongata. Now, this is your cerebellum. Okay, so here you have got your midbrain. This is your pons, and this is your medulla oblongata, and this is your spinal cord. Okay, and this part is your cerebellum. Now, if I divide the cerebellum into three different parts like this, okay, you see this part of the cerebellum which I am highlighting right now, this part of the cerebellum is called as your anterior lobe. Anterior lobe of the cerebellum. Okay, and this part of the cerebellum which I am highlighting right now, you see this part is called as a posterior lobe or the middle lobe. Posterior lobe or the middle lobe of the cerebellum. And finally, this last part of the cerebellum which I am highlighting right now is called as your flocculonodular lobe. Flocculonodular lobe. So I think this is the part which we discussed in the previous class, right? This is the picture which I am drawing for the first time, but this topic of anatomical classification of lobes we discussed in the previous class. Something called as anterior lobe, posterior lobe or middle lobe, and next is flocculonodular lobe. Now what we shall do is that embryologically how these lobes are differentiated, we shall look into that. Now, if we have to look into the embryological classification, what we'll do is that we shall draw the picture of the cerebellum, right, again. So if you already are perfect with the picture, then just fast forward this video, and if someone is watching only the embryological lobes, if you wanted to see only the embryological lobes, then this will be your first video, so watch all the video completely. Okay, so if you already know the lobes, then fast forward the video, because again I'm drawing the same picture over here. So this part over here is your cerebellum. Let us say that this part over here is your cerebellum, and all of you know very well that the center part over here is called as your vermis. So the center part which I'm drawing right now is called as your vermis. An elongated structure is called as your vermis, right? And next important thing is that this cerebellum, basically this cerebellum is divided into two halves like this. Okay, you see here, this cerebellum is divided like this into two important halves. in this way. Okay, so these two important halves of the cerebellum here is called as horizontal fissure. So this is the horizontal fissure actually, which is dividing the cerebellum into the upper part and the lower part. So this is your horizontal fissure. This is your horizontal fissure dividing the cerebellum into the upper half as well as the lower part of the cerebellum. Now, if this center part is called as what? This center part is called as your vermix, right? So this vermix is in turn divided into different kinds of lobules. For example, the upper one is called as the first lobule. Next we have got the second lobule. Next we have got the third lobule. Fourth and down is the fifth. And after that we have got the sixth one over here. Sixth lobule, seventh lobule, eighth as well as the ninth lobule. So how many lobules we have got? 9 lobules. Let me name them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as well as 9. Okay. And next important thing you need to know that here we have got two important structures which are rounded, and these two rounded structures over here are called as your tonsils. How many tonsils you have got? 2 cerebellar tonsils we have got. Now from the ninth one, from the ninth part, if you see down here you have got these two structures over here. These are called as peduncles. The tip of the peduncle is having this structure like this, and this is called as flocculus. What is this? This is called as your flocculus. So this part over here is called as your peduncle. And this part over here is called as your flocculus. So one is your flocculus and the other one over here is your peduncle. So flocculus, peduncle and the ninth lobule, together you call it as flocculonodular lobe. Okay, this description I have given already in the previous lecture of anatomical classification of cerebellum. Okay, so there you can find it. But this is the embryological. This video is specifically concentrating on the embryological classification of the cerebellum. Next important thing, if you look at the second lobule, okay, let me first finish up this part. If you look at the second lobule of the vermix, right from the base of the second lobule of the vermix, you got a fissure that is going on to the right, that is going on to the left. In the same way, the base of the third lobule, from here also a fissure going on to the right, and this fissure is going on to the left. Okay, fissure is going on to the right and left. Now coming to the base of the fourth lobule, you see a fissure that is emerging in the form of a semilunar shape on the right, semilunar shape on the left. When you come down, between 5th and 6th already I have got a fissure called as horizontal fissure. Next, between 6th and 7th also you have got a fissure that is like this, and another fissure in this way. Between 7th and 8th I don't have any fissure, but between the 9th and the remaining part also I have got this fissure down. You see this triangular shaped fissure which I am showing it here with the yellow sketch, right? So this is called as posterolateral fissure. Okay, so let me write down it now itself. So this fissure over here is called as posterolateral fissure. This fissure over here is called as posterolateral fissure. Now, next important thing is that you see between on either sides of the second lobule of vermis, right? So this is the second lobule, either side in the sense here as well as here. On either sides of the second lobule of the vermis, this second lobule of the vermis on either side, it is accompanied by another lobule. What is this another lobule over here? See this yellow color shading, whatever I am giving here, right? So this is an other lobule that is present on either sides. So what is the name of this another lobule? These two are called as ala, A-L-A. Okay, so these are called as a ala. Ala of what? Ala of the cerebellar hemispheres. Next, accompanying the third lobule. So this is center one is your third lobule of your vermis. Accompanying the third lobule on right and on left, we have got two more lobules. These two more lobules are called as quadrangular lobules. So this is called as quadrangular lobule, and even on the right side also you have got this quadrangular lobule, right? So this is something very important which you need to know. Actually each one, this is also has got a specific name, this one has also got a specific name. We are not going into that detail about each and everything. But right now, embryologically, how many ways this cerebellum is divided into? Embryologically, cerebellum is divided into 3 lobules, 3 lobes. Embryological lobes of cerebellum. Embryological lobes of cerebellum. So what is this embryological lobes of cerebellum? So embryologically, your cerebellum is divided into 3 different lobes. So what are these 3 different lobes? 1, 2 as well as 3. What are these 3 different lobes? The first one is called as Archicerebellum. First one is called as Archicerebellum. Second one is called as Paleocerebellum. Third one is called as Neocerebellum. So embryologically, your cerebellum is divided into 3 types. One is called as Archicerebellum, another one is called as Paleocerebellum, and third one is called as your Neocerebellum. Now, what is from this picture? Tell me what is Archicerebellum. What is Archicerebellum is? Just have a look. Let me use this color. See this. What is this lobule over here? Is this the 8th or 9th lobule? This is 9th lobule. 9th lobule, and you see this pedicle over here, which I am showing it off. You see this pedicle, right? 9th lobule, pedicle, and this part is called as a flocculus. So what are the 3 structures over here? Let me write it down. What are the 3 structures over here? Here you have got your 9th lobule. This is called as a 9th lobule plus peduncle, not pedicle, I'm sorry, this is peduncle plus flocculus. Peduncle and flocculus. All these 3 important structures together you call it as flocculonodular lobe. Flocculonodular lobe. So flocculonodular lobe was a part of which classification? That was a part of anatomical classification, but right now we are using that here in embryological classification. So flocculonodular lobe, not only flocculonodular lobe, even this first part, the first part of the cerebellar vermis is called as lingula. Okay, so this first part of cerebellar vermis is called as lingula. Now, important thing I have to mention here is that how many lobules are present within this vermis? This elongated vermis has got 9 lobules. First of all, we have to name what are these 9 lobules. Okay, so how do you name these 9 lobules? For example, let us say lobules of vermis. So lobules of vermis are basically divided into 2 parts. What are these 2 parts? One is called as the superior surface. I will explain you what is this superior surface, and the other one is called as the inferior surface. Superior surface and inferior surface. So what do you mean by superior as well as inferior surface? For example, if you look at this hand over here, right? So you see this is called as the superior surface of the cerebellum. This is called as the inferior surface of the cerebellum. If you wanted to look at the superior surface, then I have to put my hand like this so that you can directly visualize the superior surface of the cerebellum. If you wanted to see the inferior surface, then I have to put the cerebellum in this way so that you can look at the inferior surface. If you wanted to look at the superior and inferior at the same time, then I have to stretch my fingers like this so that you can see the superior surface and inferior surface. What is this division in between? This division in between is nothing but called as your horizontal fissure. You see the horizontal fissure here? So it means, can I tell that anything above this horizontal fissure is called as the superior surface of the cerebellum? Superior surface of the cerebellum. And anything below this horizontal fissure is called as your inferior surface of the cerebellum. Inferior surface of the cerebellum. Okay. Now, if you want a much more detailed way, so look at this picture over here. This is your cerebellum from the lateral side. Now, this view from the top is called as a superior view. This view from the back is called as a posterior view. And this view from the bottom is called as the inferior view. First, let us look at the superior view. Superior view, this is how it looks. Let us look at the inferior view. See, this is the inferior view. Okay, let us look at this view over here. Now, in this view, this is the view that is posterior. You see, superior surface and this is inferior surface. Both of them you can see, and this fissure that is located in the center is called as your horizontal fissure. And you see this elongated vermis. This is what I was telling you. Vermis is divided into 9 different lobes like this, lobules like this. Okay, so I hope you understood whatever I'm trying to tell you. So let us just write down what are the names of the lobules on the superior and inferior surface. So superior surface having how many lobules? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inferior surface is having 6, 7, 8, 9, only 4. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Here it is 6, 7, 8 and 9. Okay, now coming to the first important thing. First lobule is called as lingula. First lobule is called as lingula. Second lobule is called as central lobule. Central lobule. Third lobule is called as culmen. What is the third lobule called as? Culmen. Fourth lobule is called as declive. This is called as declive. Okay, D-E-C, sorry, spelling is wrong. D-E-C-L-I-V-E, declive. Fifth important one is called as folium. It is called as folium. Sixth important is called as a tuber. Seventh one is called as the pyramid. Eighth one is called as the uvula. And ninth one is called as the nodule. Ninth one is called as a nodule. Okay. So each lobule has given a specific name. So here what I was telling you is that what do you mean by archicerebellum? Archicerebellum in the sense flocculonodular lobe, flocculonodular lobe plus your lingula. Flocculonodular lobe and lingula together you call it as archicerebellum. So where is flocculonodular lobe here? Flocculonodular lobe is your ninth lobule plus peduncle plus flocculus, together you call it as a flocculonodular lobe. Okay, so this flocculonodular lobe and the first one, that is lingula. So this is what is called as archicerebellum. Okay, so this is what is called as your archicerebellum. Now, when it comes to paleocerebellum, what is paleocerebellum consisting of? What are the parts of this paleocerebellum? So, paleocerebellum is consisting of the entire anterior lobe. First of all, let me write it, then I will show you. It is consisting of the entire anterior lobe, but excluding entire anterior lobe, excluding the first one. What is the first one called as? Lingula. Excluding lingula and including the seventh and the eighth. What is seventh and the eighth called as? Pyramid as well as uvula. Including pyramid and uvula. So let us highlight what are these structures. Let us highlight with blue. So all of you look, anterior lobe. So first of all, if you watch my previous lecture, you will understand what is anterior lobe. In the previous lecture, I have explained you anterior lobe in the sense, anterior lobe starts all the way from the tip of the vermis till this fissure you can see, this is called as fissura prima. Till here, this is anterior lobe. It means anterior lobe is having lingula, right? Anterior lobe is having the second one, anterior lobe is having the third one, anterior lobe is having this part, anterior lobe is having this part, right? You see, this entire part which I am highlighting right now is with the blue is your anterior lobe. Now, if you look at the same anterior lobe over here, now here what did it tell? Anterior lobe excluding lingula. First itself he told it is excluding lingula. Why? Because lingula we have already covered in the archicerebellum. So now we are not including lingula, we are excluding lingula. So excluding lingula, what are the different parts of the anterior lobe? See, ala, the second one here, again ala on the left. Next, this lobe over here is called as quadrangular lobe, quadrangular lobule. next the third lobule, and the left side quadrangular lobule. Including what? Including your pyramid as well as uvula, 7th and 8th. So this is your 7th, that is pyramid, and this is 8th, that is uvula. Now you understood, right? So this entire part which is shaded with the blue. Okay, so specifically if I have to tell, specifically if I have to mention what are the contents, the first content here is the second lobule of vermis, third lobule of vermis, 7th lobule of vermis, 8th lobule of vermis. Okay, along with all of this, we even have two more structures. One is called ala, another one is called as quadrangular lobe. One is called as ala, another one is called as quadrangular lobe. Quadrangular lobule of cerebellum. Okay, so all these structures which I have just now written over here, this constitutes your what? Paleocerebellum. This constitutes your paleocerebellum. Now after this paleocerebellum, the next important cerebellum over here which we shall be discussing is the neocerebellum. What is this neocerebellum? So all of you look here. Neocerebellum. So let us see what is this neocerebellum. Neocerebellum includes the middle lobe. Middle lobe is also called as which lobe? Posterior lobe. Middle lobe is also called as your posterior lobe. So middle lobe or the posterior lobe, excluding what? Excluding two other lobes. What are these two other lobes? Your 7th and 8th. What is that? Pyramid and uvula. Why you are excluding pyramid and uvula? Because pyramid and uvula, the 7th and the 8th, we have already discussed in case of paleocerebellum, right? So that is why we are not including it under neocerebellum. So he is telling here that the entire middle or the posterior lobe, excluding these two. So let us highlight this now. So what does he mean? What does he mean that? First of all, from the previous lecture, you have to know what is a posterior lobe. See, first of all, let us see what is a posterior lobe. Posterior lobe is also called as middle lobe. Posterior lobe starts all the way from this particular fissure. This is called as fissura prima. From the fissura prima all the way till down this part. What is this? Posterolateral fissure. Till here, this entire part, you see this entire part now which I am highlighting here, this entire part is called as your posterior lobe or what? Middle lobe. So let us highlight the same thing over here. So posterior lobe or middle lobe, in the sense, see this part. From the fissura prima all the way down like this. So this entire part which I am highlighting right now, he is your posterior lobe or your middle lobe. This entire part, and here also this entire part over here. Okay, so this entire part which I have highlighted right now, leaving 7th and 8th, right? This is what is called as your which cerebellum? Neocerebellum. So this is what is called as your neocerebellum. Okay, so this is your neocerebellum. So these are the three important cerebellums which you need to know. Now why are you calling it as paleocerebellum, neocerebellum as well as archicerebellum over here? The only reason is that Archicerebellum, in the sense, this is the oldest cerebellum. Okay, so based upon the embryological basis, Archicerebellum is the one which is the oldest or the first formed cerebellum. That is why you call it as Archicerebellum. Neocerebellum is the cerebellum which is formed now. Okay, that is why you call it as a neocerebellum. So after the formation of Archicerebellum, the cerebellum which is formed is Paleocerebellum. So within the cerebellum formation also, the first formed cerebellum in the baby is which part of the cerebellum? Archicerebellum. After that, as the developmental process is taking place, slowly the paleocerebellum developed, and at last which cerebellum is developed? Neocerebellum. The cerebellum which is developed at the last will be the new. The cerebellum which is developed in the first will be the old. That is why Archicerebellum is the oldest, Neocerebellum is the newest, and in between you have got the Paleocerebellum. So this kind of classification whatever I have explained you right now guys, so this is what is called as embryological basis of classification, embryological lobes of your cerebellum. So thank you so much for watching my video. Goodbye.